The world is changed. Much that once was is lost. It began with the coming of a great plague. Neighbors and friends were forced into solitary isolation lest they succumb to the disease.
I had left a daycare job because that was going to be like instant death.
My father was talking about how he was golfing with his buddies, and my sister was like, "You're gonna die."
And those things that should not have been forgotten were lost.
I had one job that I took just because I needed work, and the hours had me ending work at about 2 a.m. and then I'd stay up until like 4 because I just couldn't sleep.
For 3 long years, community and public gatherings passed out of all memory.
That was very quickly stunted because you can't go to any event, you can't go to the store and stuff like that without having to worry.
Then, in the land of Minneapolis, an unlikely group of heroes emerged. They hailed from lands near and far.
So, I'm originally from New Jersey.
I started out in a small town called St. Michael, Minnesota.
I was in Pennsylvania, and before that I was in New York, but I grew up in Maine.
With wide-ranging skills and experience.
I do marketing as my full-time profession.
Moved to Florida, lived down there and worked on boats for a while.
I make costumes all the time.
But they were all united by a common destiny.
Kind of ironically enough, I moved out of my parents' house right before COVID began at the end of 2019, and I moved into St. Paul because I thought it was going to give me a more opportunity to go out. Well, 2 months later, that opportunity was pretty much non-existent, and I was stuck in a shitty 2-bedroom apartment, and my room that I was living in didn't even have a window to the outdoors.
And I had a period of time where I didn't have a job, and I was trying to figure things out.
A couple of months before, I was living with some friends, and we had been living together for years, but they ended up having just a financial crisis and had to leave.
I'm 32 years old, and how do I go out and meet people who I can befriend? Because it's kind of weird to find people to make friends with when you're at this age. The lockdown period, I wasn't socializing with anyone. I was living by myself.
You almost don't notice that everything is just kind of dipping down, and then you all of a sudden look up and it's like, oh wow, this is not good for me.
I watched a lot of people in my life grow and move on, and I found myself in a place where I needed to move on and find new connections.
When I was in college, it was unstructured socialization. So what I ended up doing was making friends in bars. I didn't find that to be very fulfilling. I made friends, but they were not best friends, they were drinking buddies.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be tricky to find friends as an adult, outside of what you're doing day to day. You kind of have your work life and then maybe whatever life you've established since you've been young growing up.
Even before COVID, there wasn't a lot of spaces to be able to be in public and be with people who are like-minded and even be able to just talk to people. The isolation is just exacerbated by the lack of having a physical space to interact with people.
But there are very few places or spaces in which you can, as an adult, get together with a bunch of other adults and play pretend for a couple hours,
Yeah, so one of the really sad truths about our society is that there is a distinct lack of third spaces. A third space being a place where anyone can just go and connect with other people, and it's people that you would have outside of your family and outside of your coworkers. I feel like through technology, through, the changing cultural landscape, through, just even health conditions, our society has been disconnected. And it felt really important to me to really just do what I could. And so the one thing I'm really good at is hosting a party. I was struck by the idea of having a Dungeons and Dragons in a bar night when I was in Las Vegas visiting my friend Daisy. Saw their setup, it was very casual, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could recreate this back in Minneapolis. And so I was like, well, that could be intimidating, so how can we make it super accessible? And I was like, well, what if we did like D&D in a bar?
It was an online Facebook post that said that we were, there was a company going to be doing one-shot adventures at bars.
Gray, whom I've known since high school, said, hey, I found this cool D&D thing. Do you want to come along? And I didn't know anything about it. I was just like, yeah, I'll go to anything Dungeons and Dragons related. It sounded great. And we're dear friends.
It seemed like a really exciting opportunity to go and meet friends. And so I shared it with my friend Ryan, who also loved Dungeons and Dragons. And we both went to the first Triple D event at the Brass Rail.
So I remember our first adventure was at a really dark venue. And so I brought in like white candles and roses and made it like a really kind of like, make it seem a bit more cheerful.
And I went, and the first one was in like a tiny little bar with barely any people, and it was like lit by just candlelight, and you could barely see the sheets, but the ambiance was there, and that's where I met Johan.
And I just came out of a long-term campaign. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, if I wanted to get back to Dungeons and Dragons all over again, because that experience was not positive. But then my wife found Dungeons and Drinks. Cut to me going to the Brass Rail, by myself.
I saw Johan walk into the building wearing a full wizard's robe, and I was like, that's my guy. Basically, we sat down at the table, and I was like, I'm gonna do a character voice. I'm gonna put on a stupid hat, and I'm gonna go like full throttle into this. I came in silly, fully in character, and everybody rose to it. Like everybody. It was just immediate.
I had printed out some adventure folders being like, okay, well, here's the adventure. Who wants to be the GM tonight? Congratulations, you're the GM. So I kind of threw a folder at them, and they're like, okay, well, here's the adventure.
And I was a player at the time, and we had an adventure going, but mid-adventure, the GM who was running it had to leave for some reason. So I took it over, and then we joined another group there because that person had to leave and some other people had to leave. And so we conglomerated for the second half of the adventure. I ended up running that.
And the thing that really drew me into DD&D was actually right after that event. I met Renee for the first time, and we had a little bit of an awkward exchange. And I think it was the day after I got an email from Renee, and I will never forget the line. It was, hey, sorry about that awkward conversation. I rolled a nat 1 on charisma.
But I think we're really quick to throw away relationships these days because of differences. I feel like there is a big disconnect in our society.
In a world that is otherwise sometimes pretty dreary and hopeless, I'm sure a lot of people right now are feeling pretty persecuted, if not neglected, or just otherwise just terrified. And having that place where you can go like each week or just once a month, and to delve back into the same story, to know that you are in a safe place
I've tried explaining that to my parents. I've tried explaining that to my friends in New Jersey and Florida. If you're in a place where you're cooped up all winter, if you want to maintain your sanity, you have to have a group of people that you get together with for bowling or axe throwing or D&D.
We do D&D stuff, but the reality is like as fun as I find D&D to be these days, it's actually not about Dungeons and Dragons. What it's really about is it's about people connecting.
I think the Dungeons and Dragons is it's the container in which the important thing happens, which is socializing.
So we currently have over 1,400 people signed up for our mailing list. So I think with how many people have come, I would have to guess that out of that 1,400, at least half of them have come to one of our events.
We have gone from hosting a social hour and an adventure every other month to every month to twice a month. And like, as of recent filming, 8 events a month, you know?
We get all kinds of people in there. We got, straight, trans, gay, bi, whatever.
And to have that experience with other folks who are also just kind of being able to step out of themselves and explore maybe things that they would have no other opportunity to, like gender expression. I know people who were like kind of dysphoric, and then they played their preferred gender, and it was like, oh yes, I'm comfortable now.
And so we actually have like this beautiful community of like really experienced players. We have professional people, we have hobby people, we have artists. And so really my target audience is everyone, like anyone who is interested in essentially doing what is one of humanity's oldest traditions, which is like storytelling with your friends. It's always been about meeting up in a public space like a tavern.
But I think we draw a lot of the community in that wouldn't go to a bar to socialize, but will go to have an adventure and socialize in character. They're able to get outside of themselves, be able to enjoy the atmosphere of a bar, but not necessarily have to subscribe to the culture of a bar. And I think that really helps. Having a drink or two, I mean, it relaxes people too. People can have fun.
I genuinely just get to toss away like half of the anxious thoughts that I would usually have with interacting with a stranger, because I just assume that like this is going to be a cool, open-minded, nice person.
So if I didn't have that, I don't think I would have found much luck in making friends.
Of course, Johan, M, Gray, and Ryan, all of them have been exceptionally nice to me, exceptionally accepting, and all that stuff. They've been great.
And I couldn't ask for the more emotionally intelligent, thoughtful, understanding, and incredibly honest and heartfelt people that I have the pleasure of being around. Because I'm gonna get a little emotional here. They're the people that got me back into playing games again, just for fun. And I'm incredibly grateful to just be in the same room as them.
Catherine, my spouse, is definitely a bright spot. And Catherine comes and plays at every adventure with us. So I'm super happy that I can create this space not only for myself, but for those I care about too. Oh, it has for sure brought us closer together. I think the thing about D&D, especially as a couple, is it sort of lets you explore sides of yourself that you don't necessarily see all the time. And if you're not seeing that side of yourself, your partner is probably not seeing it too.
Because what I'm really trying to do through a lot of this is build community and helping people who, might otherwise kind of be alone. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that don't have a single friend, and that's like heartbreaking to me. And so if I can even help like 1 or 2 people make extra friends, like mission accomplished. So I never knew that this would become as big as it has today. And I don't know where it will go tomorrow. All I know is that we're on the right track.
Okay, so my favorite part of tonight is that we started a band, and then we had to, distract demigods. So my character, Bjorn the Barbarian, to Missy Elliott was clapping ass, throwing it back, and distracting a demigod, while the other side of the team was taking care of the other demigod. But hey, 26 on whatever it was, and we got it, I did it.